How much do we owe the country that we're born in our tax dollars, in our gratitude, in anything else? That's a question that's frequently asked about me because we talk about moving overseas to lower your taxes. We talk about having second passports in case your country becomes unlivable or one you just don't want to be part of anymore for any number of reasons. And so today I'm going to share with you some comments people have made, and I'm going to give the most straightforward and direct answers I've ever given on this topic. I'm Andrew Henderson. It is Nomad Capitalist, and today I am drinking TWG's Earl Grey Gentleman Tea. It has a bergamot, a dashing tea of sophistication. They're not a sponsor. I'm just a fan. And if you're coming to Nomad Capitalist Live this year in Kuala Lumpur, you can get yourself all the TWG teas that you want at their boutiques, nomadcapitalist.com/live. I'm going to go through these comments because there's this idea that if you come from a wealthy country, if you come from an English-speaking country, you have this advantage and somehow you owe something for the rest of your life. I recently did an interview, and here's what people have to say. He gave up the U.S. passport, but not the benefits when he had it. Well, that's not true. We'll come back to that. Some people are definitely more lucky than others in this world, while some are just born in the wrong place and never get the opportunity to prosper. From what I hear in the video, it sounds like typical first world complaining over nothing. Should I eat chocolate or candy today? Just be grateful and that's it. Someone else said, I felt that too. I'm not an American, but it feels like after so much advantages, after having so much advantages, English classes not being one of them, he is cherry picking like a child. I am from India and police is same here. Oh. They are all arrogant all over the world, not specific to USA. The first thing I want to say about this, right, is people so often say to entrepreneurs, you know, money's not everything. Relax. I've learned as I get older, entrepreneurship in a sense is a sickness. We get calls every once in a while. In fact, I just got told 5 o'clock yesterday, my guy came in and said, we have an M&A firm that wants to talk about buying a part of the company. It's not something that's particularly a goal of mine at this point. But if I wanted to sell my company, I'd have a lot more money than I'd have now. And I mean, certainly I'd have, you know, after a certain number of years, right? You have an EBITDA. I mean, after a certain number of years, you would earn that up. But I could go and invest that money. I could do whatever else. If I wanted more money today, I could have it. But I'm an entrepreneur because I enjoy what I'm doing. I would be doing this whether we had a channel, whether we had a business or not. It's what I personally believe. And so money isn't everything. People often say, oh, the evil rich, money is everything to them. I actually think money means a lot more to jealous, petty people who wish they had money. At this point, more money doesn't really mean that much to me. I don't want a yacht. You know, I'm taking a few charter flights, private jet flights, but I don't know that I want to buy a jet. I don't want to buy a baseball team. Money doesn't really mean that much more to me. So this idea that money isn't everything is thrown at people. That's the first. There's kind of an essence of that in there, so I thought I would cover that. But let's go through the points. I gave up the passport, but not the benefits when I had it. So I had a U.S. passport 6 years and change ago. I gave that up. And listen, if I had citizenship by descent, which is something that we help clients get, it's the one standalone service that we offer. If you have Italian ancestry and you have a really hard case, we do that for you, or Slovak or Greek or St. Kitts and Nevis, whatever the case may be. We help people with that because I think it's important. I have no such connection. In fact, I told you not so long ago, much to the glee of some U.S. government employees who commented that I am just barely ineligible for Lithuanian citizenship by descent. Now, I could go and move to another wealthy country, just as wealthy as the United States, and I could be naturalized there, and I guess that would be fine to them. But when I renounced U.S. citizenship, I did not have a Canadian passport, a British passport, an Irish passport. Lithuanian would be, I might not think of it as quite as high level, but it's a European Union country passport. They can visit the United States. They can visit pretty much anywhere in the world. They can live anywhere in Europe. That would be having all the benefits. I have a collection of Tier B, Tier B plus, Tier B, and Tier C passports, as we call them. Put all together, they work very well. And I've talked to you. I don't want to live in the U.S., Canada, Australia. You know, I do think Ireland and Switzerland are interesting places. I know some people disagree. I think those are two places in Europe that have some function, especially for an English speaker. Things get done. You can have most of the rest of Europe. That's my personal opinion. Obviously, we help people move to other European countries every day. But outside of a handful of Western countries, I don't really have an interest. Generally, I just don't. It's not like I'm, you know, I can't afford to live in the UK. I just don't want to. And so what benefits do I not give up I can no longer live in the United States. I highly doubt that me sitting here running this channel and running this business could go and apply for a E2 visa, an O1 visa, whatever the case may be, tomorrow and get it. Because I think that the US and a handful of other Western countries are judgmental. In Singapore, it's like, do you meet the requirements? In the UAE, do you meet the requirements? Like, we're not going to like be petty about it. I think in countries like the US and a handful of others, I think they're petty about it. You left us and you said you were happy. Yeah, oh, well, you made your bed. And okay, you can make that argument, but it doesn't really make you a nation of laws to be like, we have laws, here's who can get in, but we don't like that guy, like, don't let him in. Doesn't mean other people who renounce citizenship don't go back. Plenty of people go back. But for me, having a combination of different mid-level passports and a big mouth, that's probably what does it. I just wouldn't bother. So what benefits do I not give up? I cannot live in the United States. Now, I can get, if it all falls apart, I can get a remote job, and I suppose that there's plenty of things for English speakers where they don't really care what your nationality is. That's not entirely true. In the Gulf, for example, like oil and gas companies, they pay you more based on your citizenship. I would get paid less. I would get paid as the citizenship that I am. So again, there's a benefit. I'm sure I could find some company to work for with like, yeah, we want an American. Or we want a native English speaker, or we want what a former American would have known. What benefits have I not given up? I can't travel now. I have a handful of passports that I can travel on, and that pretty much gets me to go almost everywhere I want. But I was offered a speaking engagement not too long ago in Canada, and I said it's not worth the hassle of me going and getting a visa. I have no reason to think Canada wouldn't give me a visa, although we did kind of dump on Justin Trudeau quite a bit 2 years ago. Who knows? I just said it's not worth it. So, there's a loss of tens of thousands of dollars. But net, I am indeed further ahead, financially by being overseas, but not really because I didn't have much U.S. taxes to pay. It was just a draining system to be a part of. So anyway, I've given up plenty of benefits. Some people are definitely more lucky than others, while some are born in the wrong place and never get the opportunity. And so I'll tell you what I'm proud of. I'm proud that our company, which I'm just told is at 82 team members, 82 employees, or as we call them, citizens. 82 people, not one single person from the United States, the country that I was born in. One or two from the UK, handful from Ireland, nobody Australian, nobody from New Zealand. Okay, maybe it's 3 or 4 from the UK now. We have taken the job of going all over the world and finding the best talent. And listen, there's plenty of countries that don't, there's plenty of people in these countries that don't have much talent, just as in the United States. But we've hired incredible people around the world. And I've learned you can't have a dogma. You can't say, oh, don't hire anyone from that country, because there's always someone good in each country. That's helped us to save money to start, although we generally have kind of raised people up to where we have a lot of people making decent money once they get rolling. But you know what? I've taken that as people who are born in places. We have a guy from Pakistan. He's a talented guy at what he does. I don't care he's from Pakistan. I love that. And I love being able to hear occasionally. We have an annual Citizen Summit. We all get together once a year. I like to be able to hear people's stories of what's going on in their country. It fascinates me. Genuinely fascinates me. And I like the fact that in this remote, online world, a guy in Pakistan can get a job and make decent money. He may not make as much as someone in the US. It also costs him a lot less to live there, but he has the chance to be a lot more successful now than he did 25 years ago, and I love that. We've gone to countries like Georgia. We're increasingly in places like Argentina and Colombia, even Venezuela, Mexico. I mean, these countries, in many cases, are going up, not all of them. And so people there, if we lived in 50 years ago when you only had to get a job where you're from, or you had to get on a boat or maybe a plane and emigrate somewhere else and deal with being away from home, maybe you didn't want to be away from home, but you felt you had to. I'm extremely proud that we get to hire people from all around the world. So quite frankly, others are lucky, right? It's the system of people like this who are like, well, you were born in the United States, so you should only hire people from Ohio because they're the ones who made you. They didn't make me. My parents, my family, the people that we knew, that helped shape me. And yet, I know people who were in very similar situations who wanted to be drug addicts. So I think we really shape ourselves a lot more than we'd like to think. But it's commenters like this that you see, because we hear this a lot. they're the ones like, you're from the US, support the people that were, stand by your people, never forget where you came from. The people where I came from mercilessly bullied me. I don't, support them for what? I'm happy to go and hire people who, hey, we've hired people for $600 a month in some countries. And now, they've 8 to 10x their salary. And in many cases, they're pretty young. And they're like, I don't know anyone more successful. I make more money than my parents combined, and I'm 30 years younger than I am. I love that. So this idea that some of us are lucky, right, I'm the one trying to change that. I don't think just because you're born in my country, where I came from, the United States, I don't think that should be a ticket to easy street. Now, listen, I want everyone to be successful, but it should not come at the expense. And I've quoted many times to you, Steve Bannon, who worked in the Trump administration. He said, we hollowed out the middle class in the United States and we built one in Asia. And I say to that, the second part at least, good. Why should people in Asia suffer and have to be held down and adhere to the stereotypes that you had of them from the 80s and 90s, that the Chinese, they're riding on their bicycles and they're eating their bowl of rice every day? Why shouldn't they be successful? Because quite frankly, they're a lot more talented in many of these places, and they're certainly harder working. Bernie Sanders now wants a 32-hour work week in the US, and you just look through the comments, people cheering, endless people cheering, yes, this will make us so much more productive. No, it won't. You just don't want to work. And so, I'm the one trying to turn that around. Here's my question. At what point has the debt been paid? I went to public schools for 10 to 13 years. My parents paid pretty healthy property taxes for most of those years. The years they didn't, they paid for the school directly. When you drove on the roads, you pay a gas tax. Now listen, if Amazon has hundreds of thousands of cars on the road, sure, have a higher petrol tax, have a higher gas tax for them as a user fee, and then lower everyone else's taxes. I'm a libertarian. I'm all for user fees. If people are endlessly using the roads, charge them for their increased use of the roads. My parents had a minivan and my dad had a sedan. Okay, we paid petrol taxes, we paid for the roads. Property taxes paid for the schools. My father paid plenty of money in income tax, and then for the first 10 years of my adult life, I worked and for the most of that time I had businesses in the United States, and I paid some taxes. So much so I'm entitled to Social Security when I retire if they don't ace me out of that, and if they don't ace all of us out of that. But the idea that for the rest of your life you have to pay. Again, I lived as a U.S. citizen overseas. My bill was between $0 and $10,000 a year. Now, a lot of Americans, it's a little bit harder right now. My situation, because I'm so international, because I'm not just an American moving overseas for the first time, I could have continued that situation. But it still would have cost me a lot of money in terms of all the tax preparation. Our business structure is pretty crazy in terms of what it is around the world. Not the ideal thing to be a U.S. citizen. And I just didn't want to be a U.S. citizen. So there's this idea of like, if someone doesn't want to be there, why should they? If someone doesn't want to be at a job they don't like, these commenters wouldn't say, no, you have to be loyal. Like, they hired you, you have to be loyal to them. They'd say, yeah, leave. I didn't want to live in the country, and I don't really owe anyone a reason. And I've told you many of the reasons. Right? Like, I don't want to be there. And why should I keep paying for the privilege of just having a passport when no one else does? Now, again, Western countries, citizens are getting angry because there is a middle class being built somewhere else, and they're increasingly angry that their largesse, the easy largesse, is going away, and so now they need to find someone to blame. And of course, it's you, it's the rich person. They're probably greedier than you are in many cases. You just wanted to build something. They actually just want your money. They're angry you have money. But at what point has the debt been paid? I mean, the point of taxes, if it is like, hey, you made money because you're living here, well, when I don't live here, why do I keep paying? Right? Do I owe you for the rest of my life? Is this like an annuity payment? Like I went to your school, so I just send a check for the rest of my life? I mean, that's totally against anything else you buy. If I stop wanting to drink this tea, I just don't buy any more tea. They don't send me a bill for $32 every month that you have to buy a new tin of tea. If I don't want it, I leave. I pay when I consume it, and then I go. But that really bothers people who they need me to pay millions and millions and millions and millions of dollars a year. Maybe it's one too many, I don't know. Millions of dollars a year. They need me to pay that because the average person in the United States pays a couple $1,000s a year in taxes. And a lot of them get that refunded back. And then they go out and they lecture, I paid my taxes. I paid my share. You should too. Yeah, your share's a couple grand. My share's millions. and you'd like to get your couple grand lower every time someone's running for office. We got to cut taxes for these people who are paying $2,000 for schools and roads and bridges, but if I don't pay millions, I'm, even when I don't live there anymore, I'm a terrible person. So from what I hear, so listen, I'm all for the opportunity to prosper for folks in other countries. I take it as one of the greatest points of pride of my life. It has been difficult. This is something that we are increasingly talking to our clients about, is where they can hire. Just for better talent, more talent, open up opportunities all around the world. Maybe you save some money, probably you save some taxes, lots of things. If you want to work with us, you can go to nomadcapitalist.com/apply, but we're increasingly talking about how you can hire overseas. We've really, I think, figured this out, and it wasn't always easy, but I'm proud of it, and I'm proud to find people who came from lower middle class backgrounds in many cases, worked their way up, figured out a skill, and now they get to do that on a global stage, and they get to be successful. So first world complaining over nothing, we need to stop with this. I grew up since I was 8 years old. I had lemonade stands. I was always an entrepreneur. But I remember giving the money from the lemonade stands to, my parents took me to church, and we'd raise money to, hey, we're making sweaters for people in India. And I don't know, I hope the money was used effectively. Maybe it wasn't. Now when I give to charity, I make sure I really research, does the money actually go somewhere and have an impact? I found one charity where they were actually gonna make coats for kids, and they're like, oh, we buy them for $80 a coat in Armenia or something. I'm like, yeah, I'm not giving you my money so you can pay $80. I'm sure you can hire some villagers and support them and make the coats for $20. I'm not here to support charity workers. I'm here to actually contribute to the cause. But I always, since I was 8 years old, wanted to give my money to that kind of stuff. Remember, I was 9 or 10. I had a lemonade stand, and I was very proud that I was able to give the money for 3 sweaters when most of the kids just did 1. And so I get that I've always had opportunities other people haven't, and I understand I wanted to help. But you know what? I was born where I was born, so it's interesting. I was born where I was born, so I should always stay there out of gratitude, and I should hire everyone in my neighborhood, and I should pay taxes there, and I should be patriotic to that place because I was born there. I didn't have a choice, but because I was born there, I should stay. But at the same time, I should feel but at the same time, I should feel so badly that I was born here, and I should feel like I'm not allowed to complain. I have the problems that I have, and I think we should always acknowledge that there are people who have it worse, both for our own mental health, to make sure we can keep being productive and having an impact. But we should also realize that, sure, we can help people, but this idea that we're going to let ourselves be dragged down. I believe I have an impact. We have 82 people who work here. We do, as a company, contribute some money to places I don't live in taxes around the world. It's not a very high rate of tax overall. But you know what? It's more money than those places have. I go places, I spend money. There are countries that say, we just want you to come and spend money. We don't want you to pay taxes. We want you to come and buy your fancy bags here. We want you to eat in our restaurants. There are countries that want that. I did not tell them to want that. I just go there. But the bottom line is, I have the problems that I have. Believe me, I got a lot of problems. Okay, I got plenty of problems. My problem is not will I be able to eat today, which is why when I give to charity, I look at what's the biggest need? No place to live, nothing to eat. That's where I start. Not able to function because you have a disability. I'm not giving, with all due respect, I'm not giving to the Scottsdale whatever. You guys are fine. I'm going to orphans in India who have developmental disabilities. That's where I focus giving, because I realize they don't have the opportunities. And I've always felt that way since, again, 9 years old. Complaining over nothing, though. You know what? I've been more charitable since I've been out of the U.S. system. Again, I wasn't really paying them much, but just felt since I've left the U.S., even when I was still a citizen, and dramatically reduced my taxes, I've given more. And I think that giving to the Indian orphanage for kids with developmental disabilities, even if you just give a small fraction of the tax savings, it's going to have a much bigger impact than giving it to the U.S. government, in my case, to what? Go and bomb people that I met all around the world. I met Syrians, I met Yemenis, I met Serbians. really don't want to do that. And I think the U.S. government, so the politicians can get wealthy. So Joe Biden and Nikki Haley and a bunch of people can like own Raytheon stock and get rich. Yeah, no thanks. I don't really want to do that. So just be grateful. Just be grateful. I am grateful. I'm grateful for people in my life that helped me become successful. I really am. I'm so grateful. I've set up a program for the people who are closest to me and the people who have most helped me get where I am, for them to benefit along with me. The U.S. government as an entity really did nothing. And to the extent that they did, maybe they did it like after World War II. I mean, how long do you want the credit for? I was raised there. It's true. I no longer had, I never had to worry about like being a refugee or being on the run from war. But yeah, you know what I'm not grateful for? Having to go around with a passport and go to countries where that country created the war for those people. So again, like there's so much circular logic here. But it's like, be grateful you're from a country when other people don't have the opportunities. When your country is sometimes the reason they don't have the opportunities. It's like, just be grateful because I'm angry and I don't have as much money and it makes me so mad. And so I'm cherry picking like a child. Listen, by the way, people all do, let's be honest. For me, being honest and ethical, even when it's like really hard, is important. I tell people exactly what I think all the time. How many people do that? Like they cherry pick. Oh, it's socially inconvenient for me to say why I'm not coming to your party. I don't do anything. Like that's cherry picking. Like we all cherry pick, let's be honest. It just bothers some people who are greedy, jealous people, that they're trying their best to cherry pick and they haven't got there. But that's my point, by the way. It is easier than ever to be successful. I think not as many people should be entrepreneurs because success is happiness. I'm really optimizing for kindness in my life these days more than ever. And so at a certain point, if you don't have the sickness of wanting to be an entrepreneur, just get your salary to a certain point and you'll probably be just as happy if you don't have that inherent bug. But for me, I need to go out and be productive. I need to work. I like to work a lot. I like to build things. I don't know what I would do without it. People like us, maybe you're the same way, wouldn't survive by not doing that. But if you want to be an entrepreneur, it's easier than ever. And that's where our clients come from. One of the things that we've done that I'm also very excited about for a number of reasons is we have the most diverse client base ever. We've got kind of a vision project working in towards 2025, what we want the actual numbers to be. But suffice it to say, we have more clients than ever from pretty much every part of the globe. And we still love serving Americans and North Americans and people from all sorts of Western countries. We're getting more folks from European countries increasingly, but we're also getting more folks who, as I've been telling you recently, I made $100 million in Vietnam. I made $50 million in Brazil. I have a $3 million income. I'm from Morocco. Another guy was from Egypt, a couple guys from Egypt, making millions of dollars a year. Remember one guy was from a village, like a poor village, and at some point in his teens, moved to Cairo, became successful, or started educating himself, became successful, 7-figure income. Did the United States build them too? You know what I love about people in those countries is they don't get bogged down with the realization that their government did it for them. They're like, yeah, the government actually works against me in many cases. And I like some of those countries. I think there's opportunities in some of those places. Some of them could be good to live if you already have money. But it's easier than ever to do this. So it's kind of one of those damned if you do, damned if you don't situations. I will say this. I just met my tailor here in Bogota the other day. He grew up, I think, in a well-off family. They're not billionaires, but they did not want for anything. And so he has, he knows people, he knows the society. I don't think he's politically active, but he can go out and if he's going to date a woman, it's going to be a woman from another successful family, that kind of thing. He's doing some business in New York, but he still wants most of his business to be in Colombia. I said, would you ever move to New York? He said, no. I live in Colombia. I can go there and I can do some business. But why would I leave here? And so this idea that like everyone's trying to leave because what you had was so great. He was somewhat well off. They're not living in mansions. His family's not living in mansions. They don't have 20 servants. But there was some success, and he's built some success. He doesn't want to go anywhere else. And so the bottom line is, the average person doesn't really understand. They don't really think for this stuff. It just makes them upset. And, for me, there's a cost to running a society. And if I want to live in one society, I've never said I'm not happy to contribute to that. There's different ways to contribute. I don't think income tax is the only way to contribute. Again, I think you should have more user fees and less income tax. If Amazon drives 100,000 trucks, probably much more than that, on the roads, yeah, they should pay a lot more to keep up the roads. I have no problem with that. But let's also understand that if somebody makes $20 million, their half is $10 million. The disparity between one guy or one girl living somewhere and paying $10 million versus someone who uses the exact same services largely and they pay $5,000 starts to get a little bit out of whack, right? And again, people don't even consider that because again, I legally, I followed the advice. I ate my own dog food and I lived as a U.S. citizen legally, filed all the forms, and I paid very little, if not in some years, zero tax. But I just didn't want to be American. If someone didn't want to be Indian, like the second commenter, people would be like, yeah, good for you. If someone didn't want to be Iranian, yeah, good for you. Like Patrick Bet David, like, yeah, good for you. You can't. Why? Really? I mean, I get it, Iran, like it's not nearly as wealthy, but I thought money wasn't everything, right? Like, you're just trying to get rich. Like, yeah, that's why he came. But like, why is it okay for those people to want to leave those countries? For me, the United States doesn't work for any number of ways. For you, it might be something else. Listen, I remember when I was 10 years old, my father said, if you're going to become successful one day, everyone's going to be gunning for you. I didn't entirely understand it. I've understood it for a number of years now. And at this point, I like to laugh and joke about it. I don't agree with the people at all, but I don't really spend a lot of my time going around like, oh, maybe I've done something like, I don't do that. But I think it's worth talking about because I think that there are a lot of people, speaking of immigrants, children of immigrants are people that as clients generally don't ultimately make the move. Or they move and then they come back. They never almost give up their citizenship. I think maybe one time. Not that that's what most of our clients do. But it's because there's that kind of pressure of like, we came to this country. Could be the US, could be Canada. Stefan Livera is speaking at Nomad Capitalist Live again this year. I love his family situation because they're like, yeah, we moved to Australia, but if you want to move to the UAE, like we totally support you. That's how it should be. We need to support each other more rather than saying like, oh, because I made the vast majority of my wealth at this point living outside the United States. My parents and I both paid for the service of what I got living in the United States. Millions of dollars over the course of my parents and I and all of our tax-paying years. If millions of dollars doesn't cover me going to school for 13 years and living in a safe place, there's a lot of safe countries. In fact, the vast majority of countries are safe. It's not like there's some great edge that where I came from had on that. In fact, it's not even the safest place in the world. So I think that all the money we've paid over the years is quite frankly enough. I think I have given up benefits, and quite frankly, I'm okay with giving that up. If I have to get a visa to go to Canada, which may not always be the case, but if I have to get a visa to go to Canada, and I choose not to go to Canada, I'm willing to live with the consequences of my decisions. Perfectly fine. You know what? With all due respect, the very nice people who called me, like I kind of never really had any great desire to go to Canada. So it's like, that's my choice. And I think we should respect that. And so if you're thinking about doing this, if you're thinking like, yeah, I want to go where I'm treated best, there's always going to be naysayers. But what I've told you for years is if you're an entrepreneur, if you're successful, you already have the naysayers. They're just going to find new twisted arguments, which again, you can poke holes any number of which ways in these arguments. Why do you care? The naysayers are always going to be, the haters pivot, right? The haters say, I don't like how you do this. And then if you stop doing that, they'll literally flip it around. They just hate you because they hate you, not because they've got some point they've got you on, right? And listen, I get there are some people who are going to be offended by this, but you know what? I live my own life. I've gotten where I am. I think it is because of certain people. And I've, again, tried to make sure that I bring some of those folks into the fold, at least in a small way. But it's not because of a country or a government or some kid I sat next to school with. It's not. And that's what I think we need to be more cognizant of.